All right, we're back. Today we're looking at the second edition of Pathfinder. Uh, Got your player core, GM core, written by Logan Bonner, Jason Bowman, Stephen Radney McFarlane, and Mark Safter. So I'm sure everybody knows that it's a fantasy RPG. Paizo, who has been connected with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that for quite a while. They took over the printing of Dragon magazine, I believe. Anyway, but Pathfinder, it's based on D&D 3rd edition, and of course, the books are pretty thick but expensive. What are you going to do? Stuff you could get for 25 years ago for $15 is now, $60. Anyway, so typical, if you're familiar with D&D 3rd edition and the way that Pathfinder kind of does their stuff, they give an example of play, what is a role-playing game, who the characters, stuff like that. Explanation of, the feats or actions and stuff like that. Then they go into, character creation, pick a concept, ancestries instead of races, of course, versatile heritages, the classes, which are the usual bard, cleric, druid, fighter, ranger, rogue, instead of thief, witch, wizard. When they started doing 3rd edition, they had your classes, and then you could pick, prestige classes and things like that. So you may see some similarity between Pathfinder fantasy role-playing game and Starfinder, the sci-fi one, with the names of the areas, Golarion and Absalom and things like that. So they're sort of all connected. Which is interesting. Everybody likes multiverse, I suppose. Religions goes into your deities and things like that. Ancestries, what you get for being a dwarf. You get feats and things like that. That dwarves used to have special abilities and things like that back in Dungeons and Dragons days. Backgrounds, languages, of course. If you're running your own campaign, obviously you got your own thing going on. I really need to get back into, maybe refabbing the one I was working on 5 years ago, which, was all fun and well. COVID hitting and everything like that, kind of, nobody wants to get together. Except down here in beautiful Florida, where we didn't have the difficulties certain other places had. Anyway, it goes into classes and things like that. And more abilities and things like that. So it's kind of wild that all the characters end up being quite powerful by the time they hit certain levels and things like that. Where back in the good old days, 5th level, oh boy, I get to cast Fireball now. Definitely some interesting. You get your companions, things like that. So, as equipment, spells, lots of pages of spells. Then playing the game, rules overview. Basically, you're still using a 20-sider. You're still using checks. You're still using attack rolls, defenses, your armor, and things like that. Hit points, healing and dying, and now you're working. You can only do certain things. You can only see certain things. Where you used to have to ask the DM, hey, can I see the orc? Can I shoot the orc? I'm gonna run up and attack the orc. Now they've got plenty of rules about movement and everything like that, who you can see and what you can attack, things like that. So pretty basic. It's just a lot of stuff. I mean, you gotta, Pathfinder, just in D&D, there's just a lot of rules, a lot of stuff in the material to set up, you know, a campaign or a character the way you want it to be, instead of fighter is a fighter, you know. But certain people have great imaginations and were able to, you know, turn their character into something, you know, a little more interesting than just plain old fighter. The GM core has a lot of information about, you know, running the game and things like that. Most GMs that are experienced don't really need a lot of, you know, pushing to tell you how to do things and things like that, you know, running downtime. Hey, what do you want to do? Well, you know. Difficulty classes, of course, character wealth, adventure design, variant rules, building games, hazards, you know, fly traps, spear launchers, traps like that, traps and stuff like that. Understanding statistics, armor class, safe items, you know, difficulty checks, spell attack modifiers. It wasn't, you know, not a huge, you know, they got whoever you're firing the fireball at got a saving throw and, you know, took half damage. Now it's a little more complex than that. And then, of course, Age of Lost Omens, which is, you know, basically the campaign setting. So that's, you got that going for you. And even the countries have stat blocks and things like that. So this is a good way of doing stuff like that. Subsystems tells you, you know, reputation, duels, vehicles, treasure. Of course, everybody's favorite thing is the list of magic items. Very short list here. Materials. It's made out of something, it breaks easier. You know, if it's made out of nothing, it doesn't break so easy. Staves, magic item, more magic items, arrow relic, and things like that. And it's got a list of all your magic items here, and then a glossary and index at the end. Anyway, so definitely a lot of material, you know, everything you're probably going to need. And of course, there's more stuff out there. So, you know, don't cram everything into a book that's, you know, huge or anything like that. Get your cores, and then, you know, decide if you want to add more campaign settings or more classes and prestige classes and things like that to your game. Anyway, I hope you like what you see. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I hope you have yourself a happy holiday season.